Welcome to the Howell Carnegie District Library. I'm Brandy Tambasco. I'm Adult Services Librarian here at the library. We're very pleased to have tonight's presenter with us, but before we get to that, I have a couple of housekeeping things. We have a few upcoming programs you may be interested in. This Tuesday, we have From Start to Finish, the voting process in Livingston County. It's a virtual program, so you can sign up on our website. Next Thursday, we have Ladies of the Lights. It's about women lighthouse keepers in Michigan. That will be in this room and live streamed. If you want to check that out as well, no sign up is needed for that. And then we have some happy little painting, interactive programs where you can paint your pet at the end of the month that require registration. Again, head to our website, www.howelllibrary.org, to find out more. There are restrooms in the back if you need to use them. We'll be running until after the library closes, so you can head out the back glass doors. If you need any help finding how to get to your vehicle, just let me know. And we have the event evaluation. If you can let us know what you thought of the program at the end, we'd appreciate it. So without further ado, I'll let Heather Aeschliman of Jones Retirement take it over.
Can you hear me over the Zoom? Okay, good. So I feel like I need to walk over here, but she showed me where the camera points, so I have to stand in between these two blocks so for the Zoom. But I'll still try and be able to talk to you. So my presentation is probably about 35 to 40 minutes with no participation. And since you're the only person participating, we might get done really early. So that's fine. But I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Heather Aeschliman. I've been in Howell, Michigan my entire life. I was born in Lansing when my parents were at Michigan State and moved here when I was 5. I moved to a family property on the corner of Golf Club and Latson, where my dad moved to when he was 5 in 1949. So I've been in Howell forever. I love Howell. I actually served on the Howell Carnegie District Library Board for about 8 years. And several of the Howell Carnegie employees are some of my clients. So I love working with library people. I love working with teachers. I also love the theater. It's one of my guilty pleasures. I volunteer with Community Theater of Howell and Pinckney Players. I'm doing stage managing at a show in Brighton right now through the Wilde Theater, right next to Jameson's. Not a plug. If you're interested, check it out. I love theater. I'm also a Howell Rotarian, as well as a Howell High School grad, and I've been married for 26 years. The first 20 years of my life, I spent basically raising my family. I have 4 adult children and 2 tailenders. I homeschooled my older children, and through a lot of interaction in the community, I decided, you know what, I wanted to start a career. Well, my dad at the same time was looking for a succession plan for his business. So he actually introduced me to the business of finance. That's what he did his entire life. It's how he raised me and my brother. And I got involved 6 years ago working with him. He has since passed away in 2018, and I will go into that story a little more in detail later on. But that's how I got introduced into finance. Currently, I am working on my CFP, Certified Financial Planner, which is one of the higher designations in finance. I'm going to Oakland University to a graduate studies program in preparation for that federal exam. And I work with a team at Jones Retirement currently, and they have over 17 years of experience in the industry. So that's about me, finance, and Howell. I gotta hold the clicker. Another thing I'm gonna admit to you, I don't do seminars. I basically grow my business organically with people that I know in the community, friends, family, word of mouth. This is not something I normally do. But as sort of a payback to the community, I wanted to offer up some of my services and some information, general information. and do this at the library. Like I said, I was on the board from 2010 to 2018, so I can't believe it. It's been 4 years already since I've been off the board. So let's get started. I want to start with a little bit of statistics. It says 90% of all women will eventually be solely in charge of their household income, which I think is awesome and exciting because I'm a woman who's always been solely in charge of my household income. Even for 20 years when my husband was the only one earning income, I was the one who made sure that it got in the right buckets. So for me, that's awesome. But unfortunately, the second statistic says that 20% feel like they're prepared to make wise decisions. That makes me a little concerned, and that's why I want to do something to maybe pay back to the community and give people some more confidence, women in particular, more confidence in to have 100% of women feel confident that they can make these decisions, because it seems like eventually they will have this opportunity. So I'm supposed to open this up to dialogue. We have one person here, and then Brandy, so maybe. Just a question, what do you think you see your retirement looking like? I'll give you my example first so that you can think about it. But for me, for example, I have 4 kids that are out of the house already. 2 kids that are 19 and 21, brother and sister, live in Idaho. Don't know that they're going to settle there, but the 19-year-old's dating a girl from Colorado, and the 21-year-old's dating a boy from Missouri. So typically, they might not end up in Michigan. My daughter, who's graduated and working as a cancer researcher in Utah, and my son is graduated and working as a piano technician in Texas. So for me, my retirement is the opportunity to go visit them when I want to. When a life event happens, if they have children, if they get married, they might be married out of state, all of those things. I don't want to be on a blow-up air mattress on their floor. I want to be able to go, visit, enjoy the time that I have with them, and also not invade too much of their space. So that's my main goal in retirement. Of course, there's other goals. My husband and I would like to travel. We want to just make sure that the bills are paid and we can do the small entertainment things. We like to attend theater productions. I don't mind it being community theater. I don't need to go to the Fox every weekend. That would be fun, Wharton, fun, but I don't need that. So some people have bigger expectations. Do you have any ideas what you're thinking?
Well, I'm living alone now because my husband passed away.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
6 years ago. And so I moved closer to my 2 sons so I could be close to grandkids and family. I didn't live too far away from them as it was, but one lives in Brighton now, the other lives in Canton. So we're within shouting distance.
That's nice. Are you in Howell or are you in Brighton? Oh, okay. Because I grew up in Howell, there's the Howell-Brighton rivalry. My office is in Brighton, and I feel like I'm conflicted. But I do love Howell so much, and Brighton's a great community as well. There's a lot of aspects of both, but for me, Brighton was like the people who thought that they were super awesome, and Howell was kind of like the farmers. So it's just that I graduated 1993. So, but yeah, that does remind me, like, for example, when my mother was home with us kids, she stayed home the entire time that we were growing up. My dad worked in the finance industry, of course, and took care of everything for her, to the fact that she had cash every week. It was more than ample amount. It wasn't like she was a teenager. She had plenty of money that he would just hand to her and say, this is your money, and if she ever needed more, it was fine. But she didn't know where it came, she knew he worked, but she didn't know what the finances were. Good Friday, 2018, it was March 30th, I got a phone call from my mom, and my dad was on the ground, and she had called EMS. I worked with my dad. I worked with him for almost 3 years, and he had been into work that day, and we both left early at noon. My mom was on the phone with her brother in Florida, and he said, how are you and Bill doing? And she's like, Bill, how are we doing? He's like, tell him we're doing great. Of course we're doing great. Last words that came out of his mouth, which was awesome. He stood up to go get a snack in the kitchen and fell to the ground. I got there shortly after EMS got there, and we didn't know what to do. We called some of our closest friends and people from church for some support in that time of need. And my best friend showed up, and she has worked with military families who have lost loved ones in active military duty. And she said, how can I help? What can I do? And my father had not been taken by the coroner yet. He was still there with us in the room. And I said, I don't even know. You know, my mom's devastated, I'm devastated. She's like, do you know where the documents are? We didn't. So she said, okay, do you mind if I just go in your study and start going through the filing cabinet? And I'm like, my trusting friend, I love her 100%. And I said, yes, go right ahead. So we sat there and we dealt with all of the last things. You know, they had to count his prescription drugs, and they had to write a report, and they had to do all this stuff for about an hour and a half. And then she came out with a stack of documents, and she's like, I'm pretty sure this is everything you need. And she handed it to us. It was one of the biggest helps that we could have had because, and we'll get into it in another slide, but because my mom had no clue about finances. And even though I sat next to my dad at a desk every single day, I asked him in January before he passed away. I said, do you have an estate plan, Dad? And he looks over at me. I still remember the face. And he smiled and he laughed and he looked back to his computer screen. And so I said, well, I guess that's because I'm the daughter, I'm the oldest. I knew that if he had one that I should probably know about it because I'm the one who's going to help take care of things. But we just kind of left it at that. And so I'm very grateful that my company actually makes sure that you follow through and get those documents in place. Make sure that they're updated. Make sure that there's contingent beneficiaries, all of those things. So I'm just going to talk about a couple of puzzle pieces. This is for married people. It's very important as a married person that you know all of the puzzle pieces. You know what your income plan is in retirement. So this is an interesting thing because income plan doesn't mean a bucket of money that has retirement assets in. Income plan means that you can sleep at night knowing that the market's been down for the last 2 months because your paycheck getting into your bank account is going to be exactly the same. And so an income plan does involve the other bookend, Social Security, figuring out what that Social Security income is now, and as you know, what it will be when you become single, because it does drop off one of those Social Security incomes. You have to mitigate risk. You have to make sure that your risk and your husband's risk can blend. They may not be the same, but at least you can both look at each other at the end of the day and know that you're moving forward with a plan that you're both comfortable with. For the death of a spouse, make sure that that paperwork that I mentioned is in a location. Now, you don't have to necessarily have it in a strong box or have it in a folder. Nowadays, you can have it on a zip drive that you know it's there, or you can have it on a Google Drive and maybe give access to your adult children so that they know how to get into it in the event of a loss. The beneficiaries, also referring to adult children, but make sure that you have contingent beneficiaries, because unfortunately, sometimes our beneficiaries predecease us. And if for some reason I had my oldest son as one of my beneficiaries and he unfortunately got into some sort of tragic accident, my first thought is not updating my beneficiaries list. In fact, I would never really recover from that, losing a child. So it's good to have contingent beneficiaries on there just in case, because my estate plan, as it says, is divided up by, I don't even know what it is, 16%, but it's divided up by percentage. It doesn't say equally between. It says the percentage of goes to each child. So I'm sure we could probably update it to equally between, because then it just gets spread between my other children, and that's what I would probably want. But that's good to make sure that those things are updated. So this is a fun slide. We have a woman painting a picture and a man reading a magazine. So my obvious question is first, are men and women the same? Not even the slightest. And this is where I would write some stuff on the board, but I don't want to give you undue pressure. So maybe Brandy can share too. What are some things that you think, areas in which men and women differ, and specifically in the areas of finance?
Comfortability with risk.
Definitely. So risk. So they have statistics, I'm not just making this up, but men tend to be a little more risky, and women are more conservative. Anything else come to mind? It does come down to that. So that is one of the reasons why women are more conservative, is because we're not exactly sure all of that. We know this is 1, 2. Women are more emotional with money. So kind of like we're nurturers. We like to nurture our money. We like to care for it. Women as investors tend to do better than men because of this risk factor, and they're out for the next best thing. Whereas if we set ourselves into an investment, we are very comfortable setting and waiting for it to just perform according to benchmarks. This one is an obvious one that we mentioned a little earlier, but men die sooner. So this is a staggering statistic that unfortunately Diane is living right now, my mom is living right now. 80% of men will die married, and 80% of women will die single. So I'm sure there's a lot of factors involved in that. That men potentially remarry more. Our marketing director just mentioned that her grandfather remarried at 72 last summer. My mother is 73, and she wouldn't even think of it. But, whether or not you intend to remarry after the death of a spouse, you shouldn't have to feel any sort of obligation. But the truth is, most women are going to be single when we pass away. Let me make sure I have everything. This one is a good one too. It says we tend to worry more about money, but I think we just worry. Exactly. And the other one is, and this is also in general, women tend to avoid conflict over money. So we don't want to rock the boat, and I get that because we don't want to make our significant other feel as if we don't trust what they're doing when it comes to planning. Sorry, I had to do my double check because I stress about spelling when I'm not, when I'm in front of people. So, with this list, we understand that we're obviously different people. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't try to come together and find some sort of consensus. If you are married, you need to sit down with your husband and let him know that there is a high potential, that you're going to be the only one managing the finances in the future. And if that's in retirement, you want to make sure that those assets are available. And unfortunately, this has only occurred once since I've been, fortunately, it's only occurred once, but an unfortunate situation where a husband had retired from GM on a GM pension and just taken one life. And so when he passed away when they were 74, she didn't realize that he had taken the higher payout because he just thought he was invincible. And unfortunately now she's with Social Security and their assets. So it's good to have those things. Divorce is another thing I know that for the people in this room, it's not necessarily exactly relevant, but maybe on the Zoom people, make sure that you have a plan. So I've been married for 26 years. I know the ups and downs of marriage, and I concede often to stick it out and be together. My mother and father-in-law were married 40 years when they got divorced, and it was devastating for everyone. Their divorce wasn't over anything tragic or specific. It was just irreconcilable differences, and they walked away. So it's a difficult situation for grandkids and such, but I wanted to share one specific instance because I think no matter what, you need to have a bank account that has money for just you as the woman. It doesn't have to be a large sum, it just has to be something, and it depends on where your income level is, what that money can be. And make sure that your credit is continuous. So don't accidentally pay off your home and not have a credit card or not have any sort of credit score. Unfortunately, this story is of a friend of mine who was married 20 years in the community. She had 3 children. She was here for about 8 years in Brighton before we found out about this. We were very close. Our kids were close in age. We hung out at their house. Her husband made $500,000 a year. She was used to spending that money. They had a beautiful house. They lived a lavish lifestyle, but they also shared it with everyone. It was almost like they had a public park party for Memorial Day and Labor Day. They would get the ice cream trucks and, it was beautiful. But unfortunately, we found out later that her husband had a fidelity issue. And during the 20 years of their marriage, every time he was unfaithful, they would move out of state because they thought that that would solve the problem. So they had been in Michigan for 8 years, and she found out, actually around their 20th anniversary, that he had been unfaithful with another woman for about a year. And she had put in her due diligence and all of her effort, and it was time to end the marriage. So she filed for a divorce. Even though in the 20 years they'd been married, they lived in 5 separate houses, she was never on any of them. She just let him do it. She got married when he was 25 and she was almost 20, so still 19, and he just took care of everything for her. And she never was want of anything. She was able to spend the money as she wanted to. But unfortunately, she had no credit score. And even though when they filed, the court said he agreed, he'd pay the mortgage, he'd pay for all the kids' after-school activities. He even purchased his oldest daughter a car during that time that was a relatively nice car, nicer than the car I was driving. But, he was paying for everything as far as expenses. But if she wanted to go get a haircut, if she wanted to go get her nails done, if she wanted to get an outfit, she had to ask this person that she was divorcing for that money. It was an awful situation. It only lasted about 18 months, but 18 months can be a really long time. After that, the assets were divided and she was okay. But just in case, to have that money, it doesn't matter how much money your husband makes, doesn't matter how much money you make. If you're in a situation where the marriage has ended due to circumstances outside of your control, you need to have a bucket of money just for yourself, because those proceedings, especially if there's children involved, may take a year to a year and a half. And even though he may still be required to pay bills, he's not required to make sure that you get a haircut. So, unfortunately, that's a sad story, but I like to share it because it's a real story, and I just want people to be prepared. I am not preparing to divorce my husband. I've been through plenty, and it's finally getting to be the good times. But in case of an emergency, you never know. Death of a spouse. We have talked about this a couple of times as well. But making sure that you have the things in place so you know what happens moving forward. Let me just make sure that there's not another story that I need to share here. Nope. So this is the story that I want to share of my friend Pam. This is not Pam, but it's a cute little photo that they have in here. I met Pam in Bible study. at Community Bible Church, I think, the one off of Hilton Road in Brighton. But I met her there several years ago. We became friends. I went to her house. She came to my house. She was in her 70s already. We just really hit it off. So her husband, Larry, I met him a couple times as well, and I didn't realize that he was suffering from terminal cancer. He passed away about a year into me knowing Pam. It was right after my dad, within 2 weeks of my dad's passing. But I went to the funeral, and I comforted her. They had been together for more than 50 years. They have 2 adult daughters, grandkids. It was a tragic thing for her to lose him. And, of course, my dad passed away at the same time, so I was transitioning a lot of things, and there was a lot of stuff. But a couple months later, I reached out to her, and I said, do you need help with any of the finances? I will offer up my services to you, whatever it is you need. And she said, no, my brother-in-law said wait a year, which I'm not in any hurry for anything, so I just said that's fine. We continue to be friends. I was no longer able to go to Bible study because of taking over all of my dad's business. Was a really difficult first year. But we still communicated over phone and text, mostly consoling one another. It was almost a year to the week later when she reached out to me and she said, I'm ready for a meeting. So we sat down, and her biggest concern was her house wasn't paid off. Her husband didn't believe in paying off the home. He just kept the mortgage the whole time. And so she was planning on liquidating 85% of their retirement assets just to pay off the home so she didn't have that bill. It was $1,500 a month that was expected for her to pay on the mortgage. Even after liquidating those assets, paying off the home, she would have a $400 a month payment with taxes and insurance. This home was beautiful. It had a separate, it still does. It has a separate outbuilding. It's on property. It has an in-ground pool. It's ranch, so you're not going to have to be going up and down stairs if you ever get to that point. And it was a perfect home, and it was almost like a little secret garden. And she loved it, and she just wanted to make sure no matter what, her retirement, she could stay in this house, and her kids could come home for Christmas in this house. And her daughter had actually purchased a house across the street probably 15 years ago. So even though it's pretty rural, one of her daughters was real close. So through our help and assistance, we were able to create an income plan with her with the assets that she already had that brought in $1,600 a month. So she didn't have to pay the $400 out for taxes and escrow because she was earning that as an income. And she had $100 left over to take her daughters out to dinner once a month, to buy a new pair of shoes and an outfit, whatever, but it was additional. I also want to mention, because I am a Medicare specialist, so I work with Medicare supplements. It is not my primary, it's just something that I try to provide as an extra for my current clients. And she had been on the same Medicare plan since she turned 65, and she was 78. This was just this year, so I'd been working with her for 4 years. I said, let's just do an estimate. We're saving her now $100 a month on her Medicare supplement. Now, that's not common, but if you stay with the same plan for 13 years, they tick it up, $10 a month or whatever, or $10 annually, and then after 13 years, you're ended up paying a lot more than you need to. So, needless to say, Pam's one of my favorite clients, not just because we met each other from Bible study, but because we kind of went through the same sort of loss at the same time. So that was something that bonded us together. So we're going to talk a little bit about retirement income planning. So when my dad was an advisor, his main thing was the investments portion, which would be the personal savings, the 401k, 403b. He actually was a stock picker, like a stockbroker. His business card said financial advisor, but he didn't advise on the whole picture. He only advised on that one aspect of investments. Unfortunately, the Department of Labor, the federal government, spends all of this time trying to regulate our industry but really I think just titles, because most people who come to seminars or who go to an educational event don't understand that I could be up here holding an insurance license, and the only thing I could sell you is whole life insurance, and I can still say I'm a financial advisor. And so my dad had all the licenses and criteria, but he actually never sold insurance. He would just refer it out. He never helped create estate plans or refer to tax attorneys. I sit down with you with tax people. I'll sit down with you with your attorneys to create an estate plan, whoever it is, so that I get the big picture so that we can figure out together, are all these pieces cohesive? Because sometimes, people, I just had someone call me last night saying, I'm wanting to lease a car, what should I do? I'm not selling them a car, I'm not even selling them car insurance, but I will tell them where their money is and what the best ideas are for them. I do not lease cars, I do not buy new cars, I pay cash for old cars. My husband is an amateur mechanic, and that's good for us. For people who don't have amateur mechanics at home, there's other advice for them. Anyway, so personal savings is going to be your retirement account. Social Security obviously comes in monthly, and I'll let you go. And as the Social Security comes in, you're able to depend on that as part of your income plan. And then this is how the three-legged stool was. There was a pension plan. So the pension plan is very few and far between right now. I'll just keep going because they're online, right? Okay. So the pension plan is offered sometimes through libraries, sometimes through police department, sometimes through other public service, but most of the corporate world doesn't offer a pension anymore. So we go to the three-legged stool as it is now. The pension plan back in the 80s and 90s, employees like us went to their employer and said, the market's amazing, and you're peeling off this much to put in my pension. If I could put it into my 401k, it's going to grow faster and bigger, and I'm going to have more assets in retirement. At the same time, the employer said, wait a second, if we create a 401k match and have them manage their assets in retirement, then we don't have the liability for however long these people are going to live after they retire. They're taking on the liability. So it was kind of a win-win for both. I know pensions are kind of where women stand with the security. We like to know that the money's coming in every single month for the rest of our life. So now that there's no pensions, what can we do? We're on a two-legged stool. One of the other things that we like to talk about is Social Security. Well, how many people feel super safe about Social Security? Not many people do because of the economic environment right now. And it's been pretty shaky for a while. What I like to tell people to reassure them, because this is what my perspective is the people who vote on Social Security bills and laws are politicians. And what is the politician's primary job? Get elected. I think everybody knows this. And so as a politician wants to be reelected, what is the greatest voting population? The senior population. So they don't want to do anything to shake up Social Security because they don't want to upset the voting population. Now, my son was born in 2003, so he's 19 this year, but a lot of people born in 2003 are still 18. So if they said, let's vote that everyone who was born in 2005 and beyond is no longer eligible for Social Security, or they get a reduction in benefit, then it would probably raise some red flags for a lot of us because of our children and children's children, but something like that may happen. So we don't know how Social Security is going to move forward, but for everybody in this room and everybody on Zoom, I'm relatively confident that it's going to be in place for our retirement. So what I was saying, just to recap, pensions are no longer a big thing. But even if you have a pension, I have a client of mine who's retiring from a police department. He had put in 25 years of service, and he had a certain amount of pension due to him monthly. I said, just let me run some numbers. He's already my client. He has other investments with me. I ran these numbers today. So as I was practicing my speech or presentation yesterday, I didn't even have this story, but I'm like, it's a good one to insert. We were able to get the exact same monthly amount for his and his wife's lifetime and peel off $200,000 so that he can pay off his Parent Plus loans and finish off his children's education. And he would probably have some more left over from that $200,000 after his daughters graduate. So what an amazing thing. He could have had the pension from his police department, but by taking the lump sum, he's able to get the same amount of income, same income plan, but still has extra money to pay off some of those student debts. So here's where we say that it's very important to make sure that you have an analysis of where your lifetime assets are coming from. This is somewhat of a sad situation, and it's just a hypothetical, but I have another client of mine who's on the opposite end. Him and his wife, who were very, very active in the community of Blissfield and have now retired up to Traverse City, had one son and accumulated some assets. When they retired, they felt comfortable. They've lived mostly off of his or her small pension from being a nurse and Social Security, and the assets are just growing and growing and growing. For me, even if you don't want to live a lavish lifestyle, one of my goals, and it's a silly one, my husband says no way, but I attend Habitat for Humanity Gala event annually. And the biggest thing at the gala event is buying someone a basement. And it's a $10,000 bid. So they start with windows that are like a couple $100, and then they say a roof, and foundation, not foundation, but all of these things. But the biggest thing is the basement, $10,000. And every year there's someone who takes that on, whether it's an individual or a table of individuals. And as I've been going to the event, I realize that it's probably planned. I mean, you're going to plan if you're going to spend $10,000 at an event. You're not just going to show up willy-nilly and throw your hand up in the air. But for me, I've been planning now for a few years. I won't be able to do it until I'm much, much older and retired. But I look at this family who raised their child in Blissfield, and he was very active with city council and a bunch of things. And I'm sure their one son does not need all of these assets when they pass away. They're in their late 70s. I'm sure if they had this income plan that said, you can spend $10,000 this year and still retire, still pass on $1 million to your son, they would say, oh my gosh, let's buy Habitat for Humanity a basement. They're not going to buy a more expensive car or go on some vacation, but interesting couple. He was born and raised in Germany until he was 12, and she was born and raised in Mexico. So if they knew they had all these extra assets, maybe they would take a couple more trips back to Germany before they lost all of their relatives through age. Maybe they would have spent some time more in Mexico. But now they have all of these assets. They still go and do the mall walking every day, so they're super healthy people. But they're not really worried about travel anymore. So not just this side of things, the other side is you may not need to hoard your money as much as you think if you have an income plan that's set out from now until age 100. We're projecting out to age 100 now because we don't know how old people are going to live or how long people are going to live. So here's another personal story. This is just the slide that goes with it. I'm going to be talking mostly about my mom and dad, but this is neither my mom nor my dad. My dad, as a financial advisor, his entire life, did a wonderful job of taking care of myself and my brother, making sure that we had everything that we needed. We got to go to Disney a couple times. We got to go to Florida on vacations. And every summer we got to go to a cabin on Mullet Lake. In 2008, my dad was 64 years old. He would have been 65 in November of 2009. He had about $1 million in his portfolio. He was looking forward to retirement. But unfortunately, between 2008 fall and spring 2009, his portfolio declined and he lost more than half because of the amount of risk that he had in his portfolio. If he would have put some of the money into a conservative investment, which he didn't really have access to, even though he was a financial advisor, he was really an investment broker, and he was researching 20 stocks every day. He was making sure that if some news or information was coming out, that he was calling all of his clients and saying, we need to get out of Facebook and we need to buy Twitter, which is funny because he did have those in the accounts. Amazon, Under Armour, Hume Trading Company. Those are all the things when I started working with him that he was researching daily. And nowadays, there's teams of people who do all of that research. But he never transitioned from how. There's me again on Zoom. Can you hear me? So, okay, I can't hear myself anymore. Can you hear me? Is it on? Okay. So he, instead of giving up, he was still earning a substantial over six-figure income at that time. He decided he would just wait to retire later. Unfortunately, he continued to increase the risk because he wanted the money to grow faster. When my mother passed away, they had when my mother, oh, I love her. She's still around. She's going to be around a long time. When my father passed, my mother and father had zero in retirement assets. The last statement we were able to find as we went through all of his things was a statement that said he had about $300,000 in 2013, the year 2013. But he's been gone 4 years now, and we have not found any other statements that had any money, so that money must have been whittled away as well. So I think in his fear, he tried so hard to recoup those assets that he was putting them into things where they were almost like get-rich-quick schemes. And I look at those people who retired from Blissfield to Traverse City, where he was such a wise steward of their assets. It reminds me of the cobbler's children have no shoes. He was just a little less conservative, significantly less conservative with others, with his own assets than he was with others. So there's another slide in the future. Thank you. Good to have battery backup because holding that makes me feel like I need to sing a song or something. I'm not a singer. But, so we don't know when the next 2008 is. I hope, and this might make me emotional, that it's not 2022, because we really don't know. We've been down 10% for this year so far. And it may continue to go down. I obviously read all the blogs and all the boring financial stuff, and they look at the interest rate curves and all of that, and they're not saying that it is. They're saying that it's most likely a flat market this year. But we never know. And so having some sort of income plan in place that's not jeopardized by this other money that we're trying to get bigger and grow is really the best way to do that. So this is another thing in regards to risk that you should really have in front of you. You should have a risk assessment. I don't use this particular program. I use a program called Riskalyze because I love it. It's actually a little speed limit sign, and it tells you how fast you're going. So, if you're a younger person, you could be going 70, 80, even 90 miles an hour, and that's okay. But if you're in retirement, it's nice to go 35, you know? It's nice to bring that risk down, but still have the opportunity to have growth in some of those buckets. Because no one wants to get out of the market when the market's been performing at record highs for the past 15 years, you know? So we don't want to eliminate the market growth, but we do want that protection in place. So this is another one, the sandwich generation. So the first time I saw this slide, I didn't even really realize, because again, I don't do presentations. This is a presentation that was presented to me to be able to present. And it says where to share personal stories. So I talked about the sandwich generation, and I shared a story, which I'll share. But my colleague, Brad Jones, from Jones Retirement, said, Heather, you're there. That's where you're at. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's true. So when my dad passed away, I helped my mother to build her home. And I do help supplement her income. But I feel 100% like my dad gave me this business, so this income is, for all intents and purposes, partially hers. She went from earning over 6 figures with my dad's income to Social Security, and that's all she has. My dad did have a life insurance policy of $100,000, so we utilized that to, and the equity in her bigger home, to purchase her a home on our property. They had moved off to Thompson Lake. So she's my neighbor. But I will be the one caring for her in retirement. And she's super healthy, and she loves to go to the movies, and she has lots of friends right now. She's 73. But my brother lives in Texas, and he's a school teacher with 5 kids, and his wife stays home. So, you know, I'm in that area right there. And of course, I have my 4 kids who are moved out of the house, and then I have my 2 little boys who are 7 and 9 and in Ohana Karate. So I wanted to tell one story about this too, about a client of mine. He had retired already. Him and his wife were living fine off of an income plan and were very content. His dad had passed away maybe 15 years ago, so his mom was super independent, and she was in her 90s living in Maryland, and she had a stroke. The stroke, she recovered from mostly, but there were some things that she couldn't do with her hands. So her brain was all there, her voice came back, she was able to talk. So she was in need of some care. Him and his wife offered to bring her to his house here in Michigan. And she didn't want to go. He was raised in Maryland, and her friends were in Maryland. Everything she knew was in Maryland. She didn't want to go to Michigan. So his sister, who lived in Maryland, said, there's this retirement home that will help her care for these needs, make sure she gets her meals. We need to put her there to be most comfortable. And again, she's still walking around. She's just not able to do some of the things that require grip strength and taking care of her home. And she's able to bathe herself. So they put her in this retirement home. She also didn't want to sell her house because it was her home and she was going to go back there. And the truth is, she may. So she moved in right before COVID 2020. So it's been about 2 years. The retirement home, I don't know how much you know about how much they cost, and I don't know how much they cost locally, was $6,000 a month. And his mother was bringing in with the pension and Social Security a little over $2,000 a month. So there was a $4,000 difference, which with 4 siblings and his family would be divided up equally. Unfortunately, we all know that there are siblings that are financially sound and siblings that are not. So between him and his sister in Maryland, they split the difference. So he comes to me and says, I need an extra $2,000 a month to keep mom in this home. Fortunately, he has plenty and to spare. His adult children are very independent. He will still pass on a legacy to them. It will be a little less. But at the time, even though he wasn't wishing it, he was thinking that it might only be 6 months to a year. Now it's been almost 2 years, and she's doing real great. So we don't know whether she's going to decide to move back into her home or whether she's going to continue there. But she likes the camaraderie there, and she's 95, you know. So sometimes things like this happen that we don't necessarily think about. I didn't think that I'd be helping supplement my mom's income in retirement, and I am, you know. So this is just something about criteria for a financial advisor. I hate it because it looks like it's selling me, but real quickly, listen, be open and honest, respond in a timely manner, speak clearly, and create a written retirement plan and review regularly. I would change this to even written income plan, separate risk plan, to make sure that all the components are together in that retirement plan. You don't want to just have things going into a bucket and not know the purpose of those buckets. So this is a final one, the final slide pretty much. It's a junk drawer at home. So, you know, we all have one of these drawers. And every time we decide, once every 6 months, to clean it out, do we really end up throwing a lot of stuff away? Usually not. The apple core cracks me up. This is not my junk drawer, by the way. But the stuff in there is useful. You just kind of get the organizer and you put it and organize it, and it still fits and you have everything you need. The point is to organize it so you know when to grab it where. You know, you can get at it quickly. You still need the duct tape and the screwdrivers and the calculator. Maybe not the calculator because you have your phone. But you still need the stuff in the drawer. If you have just a bucket of retirement accounts and you don't know what their purpose is, then you may be foregoing some lifestyle that you could have now that you would appreciate, and in light of worry about how long these assets are going to last you. So I would love to have an opportunity to sit down with anyone here or on Zoom and create a retirement plan. That is a complimentary thing for me at my office. We are the epitome of a mom and pop shop. Brad Jones runs the office. We have a marketing director, Emma. We have a office manager, Tom, who does all the paperwork. We're never going to be a conglomerate. We're never going to say, you know, if you come talk to me, it's going to be me the whole time. There's never going to be 5 other junior advisors under me who are going to answer your questions when you call. That's why I love it where I'm at. That's why the people that I work with like me, because I have a small group of clients that I enjoy working with, and I know who they are, who their kids are, when their birthdays are, who their cats are. This one was a funny slide because as I was practicing with my team yesterday, they said quarterly, they misspelled it. So even though it's compliant, it's a misspelled slide. So I have to point out the misspelling. It's under quarterly. They're just missing an R here, but it's kind of a funny thing because they worry all about compliance, but they're not worried about spell check apparently. So I just wanted to close by saying thank you so much for taking your time to come out here or to turn it on Zoom and listen to me. I do need the evaluations form filled out for the people in attendance, at least your name and phone number. But otherwise, feel free to reach out to me. Our website's jonesretirement.com.